Can you remember a time before having social media?
No, to be honest, I can't really remember.
We now have a whole generation of young people who have never known life offline.
I got my first iPad at 2, and since then it was YouTube. And then obviously I got social media quite young because of the pandemic, and so there wasn't really a time that I wasn't trying to connect with others.
I use like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. I use them quite a lot, especially after March, because I'm a screen time. Like, it used to be around 7 hours, now it's up to around maybe 10 hours. Like, it's not really good. It's gone up quite a bit.
Concerns over the impact that non-stop scrolling is having on young people's lives has prompted the government to introduce yet more restrictions. They want 16 and 17-year-olds to be automatically logged out of social media between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m.
I do think it's the right way to remove their addiction, because there's no chance for them to realize how bad this is. They should realize them, like, by themselves.
As long as it's not compulsory, because you shouldn't be able to control. Like, if I don't want to go to sleep, if I just want to doom scroll all night, I should be able to have the free will to want to do that. Like, I don't think anyone should be able to control me, like tell me to stop doing that. But as long as I have the option, if I wanted to stop, to stop.
I do think it is a positive thing, especially for my generation, to stay off your phone at night and actually get some rest and sleep.
These restrictions aren't mandatory or permanent, meaning teenagers can simply switch them off. The government says the changes will help teenagers get more sleep, focus better at school and spend more time with family and friends.
When I hear of like my siblings who are older than me, what their experience of childhood was, I think it was quite innocent and more interactive with real life, and I think our generation, the newer generation, is losing that touch, I think.
Most students agree that restrictions are necessary, but are they more likely to change their phone settings before changing their online habits?
Talk about this more now. We're joined by social media consultant Matt Navarra. Matt, good to see you this evening. I mean, this curfew won't be mandatory. It can be overridden by teens. So many of them asking today, what's the point?
Yeah, I think the thing I'd say up front is that I think we all want teenagers to be better protected online, and some of what the government is doing is directionally right, but this isn't really a curfew. It's just a mildly annoying settings prompt that, with a government press release attached. It's, worth being precise that, under 16s do face a ban, but the 16 and 17-year-olds are just going to have a default, which they can switch off in about 4 seconds. So, ministers call these features addictive in their own announcement, but then you hand them teens a switch that they can use to turn it all off. So there's a whole contradiction in there. They've tried to please everybody, the platforms, the privacy campaigners, parents, but they've managed to annoy everyone, and probably done very little to actually improve online safety for teens from doing all of this so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's annoyed this generation of teens because, as they were telling Shamaan Freeman-Powell there, they've not known life without social media and phones. But perhaps this is more to create a soft landing, a gentler entry into the online world for future generations, not this cohort. I mean, future generations will know life without social media and smartphones, or at least, have had limited access to it. It won't be perhaps as all-consuming as it is for them now.
Yeah, the government has described today's kind of proposal for 16 and 17-year-olds as a way to avoid the cliff edge when they've come out of a ban from the age of under 16s being banned on social media to then stepping into having full access, and that this is that soft cushion. But we all know that teens are not going to keep these defaults on, and the trial that they based it on was so different from actually the reality of what teens experience social like and how this policy has been laid out and this proposal has been laid out. And we haven't factored in the fact that VPNs are still a significant problem in terms of how to kind of limit teens' access to social media in the original ban that they've planned. So there's so much that still needs to be worked out that they haven't gone in the right direction on some things I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is much more to come, and the government has said this is still very much at an early stage, almost figuring it out as they go along. I mean, even the blanket ban for under 16s, there's still so much more detail and, practicalities that we're yet to learn about how that's going to work for those under 16. But in terms of that soft landing into the online world for the future generations, those turning 16 and suddenly being allowed on social media. What do you think would be practical measures that are around now? More, I'm sure, will come out in the future, but practical measures that are around now that would work?
At the moment, the main thing is that we're relying on self-control for something that teens have very little self-control over, particularly if the government calls them addictive platforms. And so anything that is optional for the platforms to put in place or optional for the teens to turn on and use to kind of limits their kind of craving to be on social media, which is, has a lot of good as well as a lot of bad to it, is doomed to failure. And actually the things that are going to work probably do need coordination and cooperation and sort of legal basis from the platforms, the phone device manufacturers as well. At the moment, a lot of it's really geared around relying on parents, relying on settings that can be kind of restricted, but only ones that can be optionally turned off until there is something that's much more strict and legally enforceable and doesn't have these opt-outs. Then I think we're giving people the illusion of safety. And I think actually that's more dangerous than having no safety at all.
Yeah, I mean, we are still watching how the social media companies and platforms react to this incoming ban for under 16s and these new measures that the government are talking about and how they adapt their services. Because, as a part of the discussion of the ban for under 16s was the fact that, during the night, a lot of teens are on their phones because they get push notifications. As you said, these platforms are designed to be addictive, and the government said, look, we're going to talk to social media companies about getting rid of that. So how far do you think social companies will work with the government on the sort of bracket of 16 to 18, which is still that grey area, not an outright ban, it's a sort of advisory sort of gap at the moment?
I think that anything that becomes optional and is doomed to failure, in my personal opinion. I think if they really want to improve the online safety for that age group that gives them that soft landing and actually can be implemented, then there needs to be legal protections and enforcement behind it, and they can't be optional to be turned off. The focus for me shouldn't be on blanket bans. I've never been a particular fan of the idea of blanket bans. I think there is still a lack of evidence to prove they are the best way forwards, but I think something needs to be done. And I think the something for me would be the fact that the design of the apps, the features within the apps that actually increase that dependency, increase the addictiveness of them, that are causing some of the problems that teens experience and that parents and advocates for privacy want addressed. And those features could be restricted and limited in a way that is not optional. And the government, if it wants to put all of these bans in place, then it can go and do a halfway house and do restrictions on features that the platforms have to implement. So they have the option. It's whether they've got the political motivation.
Yeah, and it's a tricky area, isn't it, post-16? Because, of course, in this, once you turn 16 in the UK, you can have sex, you can leave school, start full-time work. So it is sort of a tricky area when you try to enforce something on that age. It very much is guidance. OK, Matt, really good to talk to you about this. Thanks for coming on. Matt Navarra there talking about the government's proposed media curfew on those aged 16 and 17 when it comes to social media. Thanks, Matt.